Welcome to Beardy, Bruce Lee Central.
Now, as a fighter, Steve McQueen, now he is good in that department because that son of a gun got the toughness in him.
Yeah. Hey everybody, it's Birdie here. What's going on, guys? Okay, so there's a reason that Bruce Lee had so much respect for Steve McQueen, even calling him the greatest fighter. So it turns out that back in 1967, these two guys had a brutal fight. So James Coburn was the one that introduced Steve McQueen to Bruce Lee. He was saying that Bruce Lee was the fastest and strongest man he'd ever seen. And Steve McQueen was skeptical. You know, at the time, Steve McQueen was the biggest movie star on the planet. And he was a real tough guy. He was a street fighter. He was a brawler. He was not like Chuck Norris or Joe Louis. He was not a karate guy. He was an all-out brawler. And he wanted to meet Bruce Lee and find out what all of this Jeet Kune Do Kung Fu stuff was all about. So they arrange a meeting in 1967, and Bruce Lee decides that he wanted to give Steve McQueen a free lesson in his backyard. And Steve McQueen agrees, and they arrange a date and they meet up. And Steve McQueen says to Bruce Lee, before we start doing anything here, I want to find out how tough you really are. Now remember that Steve McQueen was an old school guy, a really, really old school guy, you know. He was a brawler. He was a street fighter. He didn't have any martial arts background whatsoever. And he wanted to find out what Bruce Lee was made out of, okay? So Bruce Lee says, okay. And he went to get pads, like boxing pads and boxing gloves. And Steve McQueen said, no. No cameras, no filming in the backyard, no pads, no gloves, no nothing, no helmets, nothing. An all-out brawl with no rules. And Bruce Lee says, okay. And they go at it. And immediately Bruce Lee lands a kick on the side of Steve McQueen's head. And Steve McQueen does not go down, guys. And he just keeps on going towards Bruce Lee. And that's when Bruce Lee knew that this guy was special. He knew that this guy was something else. He did not go down from Bruce Lee's kick. So the fight lasted for about 2 minutes. It was a real brawl, guys. And in the end, Bruce Lee kicked Steve McQueen in the solar plexus, ending the fight right then and there. So Steve McQueen was hit several times with Bruce Lee's kicks and punches, but he did not go down. That's why Bruce Lee targeted his solar plexus. He just wanted to end the fight right there. And Bruce Lee was in awe of this guy. That's why Bruce Lee said that this guy was the toughest opponent he ever had, the toughest fighter he'd ever met. And the story comes from a friend of James Coburn. So he heard James Coburn tell this story. And right after the fight ended, Steve McQueen decided to become a Bruce Lee student. Because Steve McQueen was also in awe of Bruce Lee, not because of the kick to the solar plexus, but his speed. Steve McQueen would always talk about Bruce Lee's speed. So he was just in awe of Bruce Lee's speed because he did not manage to land one single punch on Bruce Lee. And Steve McQueen had never experienced that in his life. Like he had a lot of brawls in his lifetime, okay, Steve McQueen. And he always came out of those fights as the victor. And not being able to even touch Bruce Lee with one of his punches, that was special. And that's why he decided to become Bruce Lee's student. And this was a big day for Bruce Lee. Remember, back in 1967, Bruce Lee was an unknown guy, okay? He was not a big star or anything like that. So having the biggest movie star on the planet as your student, that really put Bruce Lee on the map. So there we go, guys. Bruce Lee and Steve McQueen had a brutal all-out fight, and Bruce Lee won the fight and earned Steve McQueen's respect. So guys, thanks for watching. See you guys later. Bye.